So recently I returned from the most incredible 7 days hiking through rural Albania, and I took this, the X100VI, as my primary photo camera for the entire trip. This was kind of a big decision for me. A trip this big, I'd normally be taking my Canon R5 with me with multiple lenses, but I've been really rocking with the Fujifilm so far this year, been loving the JPEGs that come straight out of this one, and I thought with my heavy pack, my back is going to thank me if I just take this little camera with me instead and went run and gun style. So that's exactly what I did. I learned a bunch of things about this camera and I thought I'd make a video sharing them all with you today. One thing that I've been a little bit critical about with this camera is the build quality. I only had the X100F to compare it to, and where my X100F felt like a really nice solid piece of metal, this one, the materials felt kind of plasticky. I really liked the finish, but it was the material itself that I was a little bit dubious of. And this was pretty funny because it was kind of a stumbling block for me to take this camera in the first place. I've been kind of babying this thing because I love it so much, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to scrape it around the Albanian Alps for 7 days, strapped to the outside of my pack with a Peak Design clip, ready to take photos at all times. But I have to say, it really exceeded my expectations. I've had issues with my Peak Design capture clip before with certain cameras. The Canon EOS M6 Mark II specifically, it has completely shredded the base plate of my camera on 2 occasions and forced me to make some costly repairs. There was no such thing with this. It worked perfectly, it was clipped on. I was hiking up to 10 hours a day over crazy terrain, and the whole thing was really robust. Another thing that some people have been complaining about online that I've seen is the battery life from this thing. But I have to say, I was really impressed by that too. I left the hut most times at 4, 5, 6 a.m. and didn't get back till late afternoon. I took hundreds of shots every single day, and I had no problems with battery life whatsoever. There was one particular instance where I left the hut early one day, hiked all day, took pictures, took some videos, got back to my hut in the evening, and there was a power cut in the entire village, so I couldn't charge it until the next day. On the second day of use, I did get the red battery logo, and I had to be a little bit sparing and careful with when I turned it on. But other than that, I was really impressed with this thing. It really soldiered through. I've got no spare batteries for it. I just relied on USB-C charging, and it pulled through for me, and I got some great pics the entire trip. Another thing that I thought was quite funny is that I went with my friend on this trip. He knows nothing about photography whatsoever. I had a film simulation loaded up on this, and he loved it. He immediately recognized that there was some kind of filter on it that was changing the colors in a way that he found instantly very pleasing. He also really liked the OVF. The cameras I had with me were this one for photo and the ZVE1 for video. I also brought a wide angle lens for the ZVE1, which I was going to use if I wanted some kind of environmental travel style portraits. I tried to get him to use both cameras, and he immediately preferred this one, and it was really funny to hear him kind of refer to this as my little kind of sepia filter camera, but in a nice way. And it made me realize that this camera has such a broad appeal. I think that we tend to forget that as photographers because this is such a capable, professional level piece of equipment. But you give this to the average person and suddenly you get an appreciation for why this camera is so popular, why it's going wild on social media. It's that anyone can pick it up and immediately recognize that they're getting great results straight out of the camera. And I thought it was a great affirmation to have my friend confirm that to me. It also allowed him to get some pretty great portraits of me that I was actually very happy with. This doesn't happen very often when I'm out with a non-photographer friend and I can give them a camera and get something great in return. So massive thumbs up. I really enjoyed that aspect of this camera. I mentioned it before, but the EVF really came in clutch on this trip. It was ridiculously bright, so sunny, very warm, ridiculous kind of Central European summer weather. It got very hot, and having the viewfinder that I could look through just to make sure things were perfectly exposed was a real game changer. Another thing was overheating. A lot of people have been worried about overheating on this camera. It seems like with every new release, there's always issues around making sure that you can dissipate that heat. I was in ridiculously sunny and hot conditions, like I mentioned, and I never had any problems with heat on this camera. Now, I own the ZVE1, which is going to be particularly bad for that, as well as the Canon R5, which isn't great either. And I would say out of those cameras, in these kind of conditions, I've had real problems with my Canon R5 before, especially when recording video, I didn't have any problems with this whatsoever. It was on, constantly taking photos, took some video. I had film simulations. It was doing that processing in camera, and everything, it just went through it like a knife through butter. It was really, really good. And finally, and I think this is the biggest one, is that you see exactly what you're going to capture. So I already knew that I had some brilliant photos because as soon as I pressed the shutter button, I could see it through the viewfinder, I could see it on the back of the camera, I could show my friend Ryan exactly what it was going to look like. And it also just transformed this whole thing into a much more social experience. That's where I'm going with my photography this year. I feel like I've made a real change, that I want to share images that I take with other people, and being able to do that at the time. Didn't bring a laptop with me. I didn't have a copy of Lightroom with me. I wasn't offloading it from an SD card into Lightroom, making some tweaks, sending that across to him. Everything was straight out of camera. Connect a USB-C cable straight from this to my phone, select the ones that I wanted, and I can give them to him immediately. He could then share them on the day if he wanted. He could send them to family, he could send them to friends. I sent some to Liz back home, etc., just to show her what a brilliant time I was having. And that's where this camera shines, you know, in the same way that an Instax photo is instant, it prints off, you can share it. This isn't quite that because it's still all digital, but just having that photo immediately, there's no delay, there's no lag, I can share it. It's just such a nice experience when you're with people in the moment. You don't want to get sucked into a laptop screen and you just want to give someone a photo that you think is really great. To summarize them, were there occasions where I missed a longer focal length? Yes, there were several occasions where I just wished I could get a little bit more compression between mountain peaks just to accentuate different features. Do I regret taking this as my only photo device? Absolutely not. All of the positives that I mentioned, specifically around the social side, sharing things instantly, the film simulations, and just the overall experience of having this brilliant, compact, weight-saving camera in my backpack instead of a full kit was incredible. It also simplified the process massively. I didn't have to think about which lens I wanted or what was going on. The only thing that I had to concentrate on was getting the right composition and letting the camera shine. And it was such a refreshing experience. It really invigorated my creativity just to have this in my fingers all the time, ready to go at any moment, just strapped on my backpack. It was brilliant and I enjoyed it so much. I think going forwards, this might be something that I continue to do, just to have this as my go-to kind of hiking camera, simply because of the weight and what a bang for buck it packs in such a small package. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. I upload every single Sunday at 5 p.m. and I've been really enjoying getting feedback on these videos. So please, please, please leave a comment, even if it's just to ask me some questions or discuss this camera in any way. I've been really enjoying discussing it with you guys in the comment section on all my videos so far this year. I've got a bunch of content that I filmed in Albania, which I'll be uploading over the next couple of weeks. So make sure you stay tuned for all of that, and I'll see you in the next one.